Her country from its own government. Ladies and gentlemen, my daughter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Devolution to revolution. An already demoralized U.S. is now being destabilized. The two destabilizing events I'm talking about recently occurred back to back. The response to the Wuhan coronavirus pandemic and the George Floyd rioting illustrate well how America is institutionally incapable of making decisions in her own best interest. That is, the overreaction to the disease and the underreaction to the rioting reflect a country long demoralized in the process. Moreover, if that's not troubling enough, know that this is a state of being that usually leads to tyranny. We've had pandemics before, one causing even more death, especially when adjusted for population, but we'd never before embraced lockdowns, a cure worse than the disease itself. But at least the disease was relatively unknown, riots or not. People the world over know how to deal with riots, and this isn't by letting them masticize so thugs can run wild, hurt the innocent, and destroy the nation. Yet our leaders fiddled while the country burned, motivated by moral confusion and weakness, and some, most certainly, by ulterior motives. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean planned, organized, orchestrated, thought out, premeditated, so on and so forth, etc. Now, you may recognize demoralization and destabilization as the first two steps in the process of a communist subversion, explained well by the late Soviet defector Yuri Bezmenov, a ex-KGB agent who fled to Canada in the 1970s. Bezmenov stated in the mid-1980s already that the process of demoralization and undermining of a target nation's morals that makes it ripe for revolutionary takeover. And even back then, he was basically saying that it's basically completed already in the United States. But a money line is what he said about the demoralized people. Despite the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process. Sound familiar? Maybe a bit like people who can't figure out how to handle rioters or why it's even necessary. How about people who think eliminating ICE, Border Patrol, and the police are a positive measure? I refer to the actual sincere individuals. Bezmenov also said that the demoralized people are a programmed people to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change these people's minds. Sound familiar? People perhaps like people who react to truthful statements by reflexively shouting racist or white supremacist, just because they don't agree. One more familiar sentiment Bezmenov also stated is this: a person who is demoralized is unable to access true information. The facts tell nothing to them or him. Just think here about how many today will react to the airtight, fact-based, logical arguments, not with assent or even open-minded pondering, but with angry rejection and clenched fist. Now, note here that numbness to truth is nothing new. British satirist Jonathan Swift observed hundreds of years ago already, I'm paraphrasing, that you cannot reason with a man out of a position he has not reasoned himself into. The difference is that the process of demoralization in question yields large numbers of people erroneously detached from reality in a way that serves a specific agenda, and who are virtually impossible to change. Our thoroughly demoralized states can be best understood by grasping how our society actually demonizes the elements of morality, virtues, while elevating vices. Chastity is called prudeness, while sexual depravity is normalized and lust is branded lifestyle choices, emphasizing diligence and its fruits. Punctually hard work is called white supremacy, while sloth is rewarded with handouts. Prudence, wisdom is branded bigotry, while foolishness is called wokeness. Faith is deemed fantasy, while secular cynicism is thought sophistication. Actions reflecting courage are called cruelty, and cowardice is called compassion. Humility is considered weakness, while pride is labeled high self-esteem. Patience is devalued, while acting on a wrath is called activism. Kindness is lacking, while envy is propped up as a desire for social justice and equality. This is a time of moral inversion, taking everything good and perverting it, flipping it. What is up is down, what is left is right, what is good is bad, what is bad is now good. You get this. You understand this. The result? The end result? Well, you are now seeing that. Spoiled brats have access to supermarkets abundantly stocked with food, free time to fritter away on frivolity, including mindless protesting, and are awash in luxury goods. Yet wail they are oppressed. They cry. They need more. Now these people, let's be clear, these people that you're seeing doing this, of course, they are the sheep. But they are also wolves in sheepdogs' guise who herd the sheep toward a revolution. Both types do note the demoralized and dull, and the demoralized and demonic, the calculating ones, are found within government and other influential positions around the world. Thus, do we have many prominent people doing the unprecedented, actually encouraging the rioters? The result is that the destabilization is intensifying, aided and abetted from above and via demoralization-born policy. Consider, one thing helping quell the riots is arresting rioters and keeping them locked up until matters cool down. Recently enacted bail reform laws in New York, for example, make this impossible. However, because they're leading to the rioters and looters being immediately released, add this to the George Soros-installed district attorneys who won't prosecute a single rioter, and the picture is very clear that I just painted for you. The powers that be are keeping the left-wing insurrectionists out on the street, giving them free rein to help destabilize the society further. Now, not that this is new. This has been going on for years now. Mobs have been attacking Trump supporters, sometimes with the tacit acceptance or even approval of the authorities. Trump officials have been also harassed, often encouraged by the likes of people like Representative Maxine Waters out of California. Some of what's occurring today has been orchestrated by a well-funded astroturfing puppeteers behind the scenes, but this isn't new either. Remember, Democrat operatives were caught on hidden camera in 2016 confessing to how they were fomenting violence at Trump rallies? One of them, Scott Fovel, actually said, "We're starting an anarchy here." Yet the mainstream culture has become so demoralized that much of this aid is just overt. Just consider all of the corporations that support and even donate money to places like Black Lives Matter and similarly deposed groups. Cisco, for example, gave $5 million to Black Lives Matter and Co. When a country's destabilization becomes severe enough, it can move into a subversion's next stage, the crisis. This period only takes weeks and is when a revolution occurs that can sweep the puppeteers into power. This absolutely is the goal of these authority authors that are helping bring in destabilization. Obviously, our country isn't in this sense in crisis yet, but there are many disturbing developments happening day by day, week by week, hour after hour. One, for example, is the ex-generals have been speaking out against President Trump. Emboldened by this, Stalin enabler, the New York Times encouraged the military to disobey the commander-in-chief, and the University of Chicago law professor actually called on the generals to depose and jail the president. This is the last stage of subversion, is normalization of it. This is for stamping out all dissent and cementing control post-revolution. Really, though, we've been experiencing the culturally, hence the term, not my favorite, cultural Marxism. I mean, what would you think cancel culture involves? It's about using extreme social pressure and the threat of a career destruction to stamp out opposition to our politically correct cultural revolution. For example, Sacramento Kings play-by-play announcer Grant Napier just lost his job for tweeting, "All lives matter." Every single one, he said. While Los Angeles Galaxy soccer player Alexander Katia was axed over his sentiments relating to the riots his wife posted to social media. In contrast, El Oriel just rehired black transgender model Monroe Bergdorf 3 years after firing him for this being his racist sentiments, basically, such as how white people need to admit that their race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth. L'Oreal saw the graffiti on the wall. So what's happening is plain just how the Iron Curtain era Hungarian Marxists made clear that you could be a Christian, sure, but they wouldn't allow you to be Christian and successful at the same time. The leftists controlling culture have made acceptance of their ideology and prerequisite for career success. Now you know why and how cowardly quarterback Drew Brees folded like a tent after expressing patriotic sentiments, and why prominent people coast to coast have pledged obedience to the Black Lives Matter, essentially a terrorist group on bended knee. They want to stay prominent and hope they can buy mercy by groveling. I've been warning for years about how this is going to happen due to moral decay, demoralization of our culture, and it drifts more to the left, no matter who is in office, and politics being downstream of the culture. We can't lose ever more control over the culture shapers, the media, academia, entertainment, and increasingly in big business, without ultimately losing the political sphere completely and irretrievably. Fact, unless we can change our culturally trajectory, tyranny will be our lot. It's just a matter of time before it creeps in. Like I said, the wolves are at the door. They've been at the door. They're banging on the door, getting ready to kick the door in. The solution to the demoralization is, of course, moralization, the cultivation of virtue in the people. We can't MAGA unless we MAMA, make America moral again. We can't fight evil if we won't even speak against it. Silence equals submission. Remember this as well for the day, that with every passing month of the price of dissident becomes greater, the consequences for not registering it more obvious, and the odds of having an impact become slimmer. Right now, speaking truth may cost you money, but the price of cowardice and the moral corruption today is that tomorrow it may cost you in blood. For anyone interested, I'm going to leave the link down below of a video of Yuri discussing destabilization. So check that out. I would put it here, but the video is already at the 18-minute mark. So I'll just leave the link, Yuri down below. Check it out. Again, I am Michael. This is the Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you. And where we go one, we go all.